It is a glorious day. How warm? What's the temp? Ooh, it says it's 57 degrees, which is 57 degrees of lusciousness, especially if you're my dog and you think it's just great to bounce around like some kind of weird kangaroo. But it's good to have you with me, and I hope that all is well with you. As you do come on, please do say hi, and I will respond in kind. Um, it's just a couple of days before the kind of marathon of services: Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Stephen's Day. For those of you who know the Brits, Boxing Day, and then it's the first Sunday after Christmas on Sunday. It's just kind of wild ride of services and scriptures, and on my part, sermons. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Bill. Good morning, Jeannie. And yes, happy Tuesday. It is absolutely gorgeous. Um, yeah, I don't know why the dog isn't in here. He should be bouncing around. He has been doing most of the morning. Maybe he's just worn himself out. Who knows? So, as always, thanks for joining me. Let's see what's happening. Well, we're all set for the Christmas services. On the 24th, which is Thursday, we have our Vigil Mass, the Vigil of the Nativity, and we have some very special music set up, so I do hope you'll join us. It will be live streamed at 10:15 p.m. That's for the music portion, and in theory, the rite to Eucharist will start at 11. Depends on the amount of music, doesn't it? But that's the theory of it. I think we've got it pretty much worked out. So that's the 24th. It'll finish around about midnight. And then on the 25th, Christmas Day proper, we have the Mass and the Nativity at 10 a.m., which will also be live streamed. This is a said service, so it's not going to have any hymns or anything like that. It's going to be kind of peaceful, reflective, meditative contrast between the glory and the joyful noise of the previous evening. That's the theory anyway. But we are going to do drive-through communion for this one. So if you are interested, drive-through communion is going to be from around 10:45 a.m. till 11:30. I'll try and get that information to Margot and Jay to get out into the bulletins as well. Obviously, doing drive-through communion after midnight is probably not a good idea for Christmas Eve. So Christmas Day, the service is 10 a.m. It will be live streamed, and there will be a drive-through communion from around about 10:45 to 11:30. Good morning, Ed and Paula and Mike and Jennifer. It's good to see you all. Oh, and Kit. I nearly missed Kit. Good morning. Then on the, let's see, that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we have the Feast of Stephen, 10 a.m. Again, this is a said Eucharist. Good morning, Laura. I look forward to the live stream. Yes, we won't be seeing you this year. We'll miss you too, Laura. And good morning, Pam. The Feast of Stephen, Boxing Day, if you're English. I had to think of that bit then. Duh. This will not be streamed, but if you'd like to come along, 10 a.m. in the church, that would be great. And good morning, Father Lewis. And then on Sunday, it is the first Sunday after Christmas. So, please do keep in your prayers. I'll be preaching 4 times in 4 days, which is not a marathon, but it's a lot of words. Although, don't say it, don't write it. You know I can do a lot of words. Let's see if I can split 37 minutes, 37 seconds over 4 services. I'm sure Bill is rapidly working out what it is to the second that I cannot go over each sermon. Good morning, Anne. It's good to see you. So I'm looking forward to this. My t-shirt says it all. Make it snow. But yes, have you heard? it could be that on Christmas Eve there's going to be some storms. Now, I don't mind a kind of cooler like this weather. That would be nice. But um, I don't want storms. And can you imagine? I mean, we're live streaming. We've got a bunch of stuff that all relies on electric. And what is Florida good at when it comes to storms? Having power outages. And that kind of worries me. Worries me a bit. Good morning, Margot. It's good to see you. From Margot and Holly as well. All right. If you didn't hear me, send me a text to remind me to tell you what I've said earlier on. Or you can just go back and see what it was I said. And it was to do with putting some information to the people in your email blast regarding drive-through communions or communion on Christmas Day. Anyway, just get in touch and I'll get back to you. You cut me to the quick. I'm so excited for your ample opportunity to serve and ice. Yes, but I could take this opportunity and I could run with it, Bill, and you know I could. So, what do we need to know? Well, on Sunday it's as normal for us. 8 a.m. right 1 and 10 a.m. right 2. Masks worn, etc., etc. Before you enter the building, while you're in the building, if you need to go out, then you can take it off. And then after the service, don't congregate at the back of the church. Observe social distancing at all times. There's hand sanitizer anywhere, everywhere. Make use of it. And if for whatever reason your hand sanitizers run out, please let me know, and then we can swap it out for you. So yes, COVID numbers for this week as we come to yet another busy time for people to travel. Oh, Father Lewis, oh, please don't run with it. Well, I guess you're going to be at the services, so it could be that you might want to try and stop me. I need one of those things that a long pole with a hook on it that just kind of appears, yanks me off. Yes, COVID numbers. I can't remember how many millions are expected to travel for this season. And as we're only just getting into the after effects of Thanksgiving with the increase in numbers, this is not good. So here are the COVID numbers as I picked them off the Johns Hopkins website this morning. Positive cases have gone up by over 1.5 million in a week to 18,043,397. Number of deaths, 319,466, and that's a plus of 18,972 in a week. Again, these numbers just, I don't know what point a number just becomes meaningless, because at least my puny brain can't grasp, it can't visualize it. But a number like 18,000, well, a number like 8,000 is just something, it's awful. And you've got to feel really sad, not only for those who died and did the right thing, but those who are going to be missing somebody at the Christmas table. They may have already sent a Christmas card out to somebody who will no longer receive it. There's just so much sadness, and there's just too much. Kit says, you know how at the Oscars the music starts when people have gone on too long? Just saying, Father L. Yes, he's got his flute, hasn't he? Yes, that could be it. Although, do you know how at the Oscars the music starts when people have gone on too long and those people just ignore it? Just saying, Father L. Anyway, yes, Florida. Numbers, positive 1,212,581, which I actually didn't work out what the increase was. It's under 100,000 in a week. And the deaths have gone up by 673 to 20,680 from last week. And the positivity rate, on the news this morning, it said it was 8.45. On John Hopkins, it said 8.1, which is a difference of 0.35, which is probably within a margin of error anyway. But it's still above that magic 5%, which means that there's still too much going around. And as we know, if you've been watching the news, some of the counties and cities have started taking it a bit more seriously. Woohoo, about time, isn't it? With some businesses being fined for not keeping people within the ordinances of wearing masks and stuff like that. I was in Publix the other day, and a group of three men walked in without masks, just came straight out of their truck, and nobody did anything. Sometimes I wonder if people do that on purpose, just to see what kind of reaction they're going to get. It's not good. It's just foolishness. And if it's some kind of macho thing, well, it's the kind of macho I would never want to be involved with, because that kind of macho just equals stupidity. In Lowe's yesterday, I had to go for one small thing, and it took me like half an hour to get it. Most of it at the checkout, because the guy couldn't find it in this big ring binder thing that he had to use to find the barcode. And even though I described it to him in every way possible, I mean, it was a carriage bolt. That's what it was. When he did find a barcode for it, I was suddenly paying for 50 carriage bolts rather than one. Meanwhile, behind me, I had to turn round to this group of people who were, well, they were less than a foot away from me, never mind 6 feet, and I was getting a bit of annoyed with them. But it's that easy, you just forget where you are, and all of a sudden you're in the old-fashioned line where you're breathing down the person in front of you's neck. Don't like that. I don't like it anyway. So that's where we are. We still need to be very, very aware of what we're doing. So let's look at what's going on. We have another vaccine. Moderna's been approved, and this is from news4jax.com. So I'm assuming it's Jacksonville. This is from Tallahassee. Florida is receiving a shipment of about 120,000 COVID-19 vaccine doses from Pfizer this week, and we'll get another 360,000 plus doses of a vaccine from Moderna, Governor Ron DeSantis announced on Monday. The second shipment of the Pfizer vaccine will come days after DeSantis announced what was expected to be a week-long delay in the new supply. In the early weeks of inoculating Floridians against the disease, DeSantis continued to direct the coveted vaccines to what he calls the tip of the spear, those frontline healthcare workers dealing directly with infected patients, as well as the roughly 138,000 residents in nursing homes and assisted living facilities across the state. DeSantis will announce a plan Tuesday, which is today, for the second phase of vaccine distribution that will put Florida's seniors next in line to get shots over first responders and general healthcare workers. The governor Monday didn't disclose the age cutoff for the pending policy, but several times discussed the 70-plus population during a news conference in Key Biscayne, please help me here. A 2020 census projected estimate about 3.17 million people in Florida were 70 or older. So that's a big one. Now, I actually watched on Fox News this morning part of that interview, and DeSantis said he's kind of changing his tactic in that he's going to go to prioritize the seniors, and he's kind of classifying those who are 70 and older. And he almost said it was almost like a mistake that he was doing those who were young, who were less likely to be distressed by COVID, but were frontline workers, rather than vaccinating the older ones. Biscayne. All right, I got it right first time. Thanks, Kit. I'll probably forget and ask again sometime. So I was kind of bemused by this, because we all know these people who have who are COVID positive, yet show zero signs of it. And it seems to be that the younger people, those who are younger and healthier, are more likely to be like that, even though older populations can be as well. And in my mind, it still makes perfect sense to have all the frontline workers vaccinated at the same time as you're doing the elderly, more compromised, or at least the more worrisome population. They should also be vaccinated, because if there is a frontline worker who is positive, they may be spreading it around anyway. And if you haven't inoculated them, if you haven't vaccinated them, and there are still people within the assisted living facility or the medical center or wherever it is they work, doesn't that sort of point to a slight problem? Anyway, that's just my 10 penneth worth there. So it is good that we do have this other vaccine, and it is good that we're getting some good numbers in. The John Hopkins website now lets you know by state how many vaccinations have taken place. And I meant to write that down, and then I saw something shiny and it drew my attention to it. I was, ooh, and then I couldn't remember what it was I was supposed to be doing anyway. So we now have 2 vaccines available. Now, the details about the vaccines themselves are readily available, and they work mostly, the 2, Moderna and the other one, the Pfizer one, work mostly in the same way. The only difference being that the Moderna one doesn't have to be that super cold special freezer thing. It is, I think you can put it in a normal refrigerator or a normal freezer. But they are still a 2 shot vaccine, so you need to do. So when it comes to which one you should get, well, it's highly unlikely you're going to get a choice. It's the same as like the flu shots. There's loads of different flu shots available. But if you go to Publix, you may get one. If you go to CVS, you may get another one. But they're all the same, and they all do the same thing. And they all come with the same kind of possible side effects, which with these vaccines for COVID-19 is the usual kind of aching arm at the point of injection, maybe a slight fever after receiving it, like you may do if you got the flu jab vaccination. Now, there was some concern about a very few people who reacted almost immediately afterwards in the kind of anaphylactic way that they needed an EpiPen to help them. It seems that these people have tended to have very sensitive immune system issues. But apparently, in order to make sure that everyone copes with the injection just fine, those receiving the vaccine will be asked to wait for 15 minutes after the shot before they leave the facility where they've received the shot. Kind of makes sense. And they'll make sure that there are EpiPens around as a kind of just in case. But from what I've heard, there's maybe 3 people, at least in the UK and the US thus far, that's happened to. So it's a pretty rare thing. Which comes to the next question. And this is kind of interesting for me, because every time there's been a study done, or at least some research done, or polling taking place, it's changed, and it's changed towards the direction of people wanting to get a vaccination. So should you? Well, yes. If somebody offered me one, I'd take it. And I'd like to hear any kind of weird and wacky argument as to why anyone but those who would be medically recognized as not able to receive a vaccine, um, why you shouldn't receive it. You know, does the anti-vaxxers campaign include any and all vaccinations? Is there some kind of plot behind this particular one? I know that some people think it was kind of rushed to market. Um, but from those who know all the kind of epidemiological ways that these things come together, and the studies that go behind um, um, producing one of these vaccines, the only part that we don't know is kind of long-term effects. Um, and but this is, most of the people who do this for their daily bread, it's what they do, have very few concerns. They say, well, for the most part, it's gone through all the proper protocols apart from this long-term study. And you could say, well, yeah, we're guinea pigs then, aren't we? We're being the long-term study. But at what point do you say that something is pretty safe? 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years? So, there's got to be a cutoff point. And like I said, these people who do this for a living, they think this is, first thing is it's incredible that the speed it's gone through, with the encouragement of governments throughout the world, including our government. And it's as safe as we can possibly. It's this or possible death. Is probably the best way of putting it. And like I said, I would get one without missing a beat. I would go and get one. But now let's get to the possibly scary news. I don't know whether you've heard, but something's happened in the UK. Now, viruses change all the time. For instance, the seasonal flu jab is different every year because the flu itself mutates every year. Otherwise, we just have the one type of flu jab inoculation, and it wouldn't have to be updated, but it is. So for those who, again, do this as their daily living, it was hardly a surprise to those scientists that this variant of COVID-19 has its own variant, and it was expected. But concerns are growing over a new strain that's been identified in the UK. Oh, from Paula. It's important to remember that the current COVID vaccines are based on over 17 years research. Oh, yes, true. All this started with work on SARS-CoV-1. And yes, because 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 19 is the year it was discovered rather than anything else, is just another variant. So again, there's going to be variants of variants of variants. Oh, I like this coffee. So the broad symptoms of this new strain are the same: high temperature, persistent dry cough, and this is the one that you should be aware of as a possible first sign you've got COVID, a loss or change in your taste and or smell. Now, apparently the vaccines that we have that have already come out should still be effective against this new strain. And it's not believed to be any more deadly, but people are worried because this mutation appears to be about 70% more infectious. So it's easier to catch, basically. Now, this one has been named, I love this, VUI-2020-12/01, the first variant under investigation in December 2020. And it's thought first to have occurred in mid-September in the UK's southeast, in London and in the county of Kent. Well, it's very interesting that it would be in those environments. County of Kent isn't known for being heavily populated. London, of course, is. Susan Hopkins of Public Health England said the agency notified the government on December the 18th when modelling revealed the full seriousness of the new strain. The UK submitted its finding to the World Health Organization the same day. Since then, it spread quickly in the southeast, becoming the dominant form of the virus there. In London, 62% of cases were due to the new variant in the week of December 9. That compared with 28% 3 weeks earlier. Faced with this rapid development, the UK government has moved to enforce stricter lockdown measures over the coming Christmas period. I don't know whether this was true, but when I was watching the news last night, the newscaster from London said that there will be no Christmas shopping by edict from Boris. Now, I don't know whether that was true, but yeah, it could be that it needs to be taken that seriously. Earlier, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson had been committed to allowing people to meet for festivities. But amid rising criticism and on the advice of his scientific advisors, many Britons are now banned from mixing households until at least the end of December, when the new measures will be reviewed. Banned. I wonder how that's going to work. Patrick Vallance, the UK's chief scientific advisor, said the new variants may be in other countries as well, but might have started in the UK. The Netherlands and Belgium reacted quickly, banning travellers from the UK on December 20th in a bid to stop the new strain from spreading. Other countries in Europe and elsewhere have since taken similar moves, including Argentina, Chile, Colombia, and Canada. According to the UK's Chief Medical Officer, Chris Whitty, current swab tests are able to identify the new variant. Scientists say the new strain contains 23 changes, many associated with alterations in a protein made by the virus. UK Health Minister Matt Hancock has suggested the new lockdown measures may stay in place for some time. Quote, "Given how much faster this new variant spreads, it's going to be very difficult to keep it under control until we have the vaccine rolled out," Hancock said. Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, said on Twitter that the cases of the mutant were lower in Scotland than the rest of the UK, but warned preventative action may be necessary to stop the faster spreading strain taking hold. And then it ends with more than 67,000 people have died of COVID-19 to date in the UK, making it one of Europe's worst hit, along with Italy. So that's the information that we need to take to heart. But what do we do with this information? Well, to be forewarned is to be forearmed, to be sure. But if the problem here is to do with increased virility in how the virus spreads, how do we ensure that we don't come across it? I think most of us, Bill says, I bet it's a conspiracy to keep the Brits home. It won't work. You know, Brits and pubs, they go together. There will be riots. We want our pubs. Give me my beer. I mean, there's going to be some snappy meme. Ale or death, or something like that. Oh dear, yes. Most of the people I know are kind of semi-tolerant to the idea. But if they're told to do something, that's when it's like, really? You're telling me? Let's see how this works. Even when it's to do with something which will save their lives. There's some weird kind of negative psychology that goes on with that phrase. So I don't know. So what do we do though? I mean, it's let the Brits look after themselves. What do we do? Well, I think most of us are doing what we can to stay out of harm's way. So that being the case, I think it behooves the state and local governments to get all the information they can about this variant and begin to take steps to mitigate its arrival. This may mean real lockdowns, and doing this while we get the vaccine out there as fast as possible. Um, we can only hope that the number of doses of vaccines are high enough, and that the facilities to be able to get the vaccine out are broad enough and deep enough that we can get as many people vaccinated as possible. And to do that state by state is going to vary, isn't it? It depends on the demographics within each state. It depends on the geography of each state, and the terrain, and how people can get into rural areas or from rural areas into places that can give them the vaccine. But we should have learned from the pathetic response to how we acted on the kind of introduction of COVID-19 into the country, that we need to sort of hit it hard, or at least, well, you can't hit a virus hard, but our response needs to be something which chokes it. And if that means we do have to do shutdowns and stuff like that, because we know it works. I mean, the Brits, bless them, when in their last lockdown, the infection rate went down by 30%. That is not to be sneezed at, no pun intended. These things do work. The mask ordinances, wearing masks works. Social distancing works. Avoiding numbers of people, that works. And these are common sense. These are things that could be done, but it needs to be mandated from the top, and not as a kind of, well, if you would like to do these things, that's okay. But you don't have to. I mean, no. It's just got to be said. We're doing this, and we're doing this because it matters. It matters to the lives of too many people that you don't know. And as for your individual rights and stuff like that, well, for the time being, you can stick them, because and it's not a first step into some kind of totalitarian state, because we the people can speak louder after if the governments do try but this is life-saving stuff, and we need to look after our communities and not be selfish. And we need to look after the small businesses as well. So everything needs to be kind of put in place to make sure that, nobody fails at this. And everybody understands it's not only in their own best interests, but we as a country will look after everybody as well. It's the opposite of where we've been going for the last 30 or 40 years, from a kind of community consensus towards this individualism, which is now running rampant and is pretty much disastrous to any kind of cohesiveness in decision making. Anyway, let me move on to the topic for today. Oh, what did Paula say? Taking mitigation steps, of course, that they softballed with the initial outbreak. Yes, you're right. So, given the choice of giving you the readings for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, St. Stephen's Day, or the first Easter Sunday, first Sunday of Christmas, I'm going with the first Sunday after Christmas. So, believe it or not, well, the collect goes on about the light of the world has arrived, kind of. And then we move into the prophet Isaiah. I'm not going to even read them because I forgot to bring my iPad, so I don't even have them in front of me. So I'm just going to sort of talk about them. Yes, could I do that? No, I can't. The Isaiah reading is like a lot of the Isaiah readings we've had of late, and in that it's poetic in the way it presents its theme. And the theme starts with an urgent call to Jerusalem, which is, "Arise, shine, for your light has come." And that's Isaiah 60, verse 1. And then it ends with a kind of solemn naming of the city as sought out, a city not forsaken. And that's Isaiah 62, verse 12. The theme within the reading that we're given us is within this context. And it's to do with the exaltation of those who were once oppressed and dishonored. But they're now honored, and they're now vindicated, and they're restored to a peace in holy Jerusalem. And there is a real joyousness about this whole reading for today. And it includes looking to Jerusalem and seeing what there's a special relationship within Israel of the city of Jerusalem and God. And God's restoring of Israel depends on this relationship that God has with Jerusalem. Because if he didn't really care for Jerusalem, then that would be the same. He wouldn't care for Israel itself. And within the reading from Isaiah, we're kind of given a couple of metaphors. And the first one is to do with flourishing of plants in wholesome soil. Now, when you think about it, when we think of Jesus and some of the parables he spoke, we think about the parable of the sower, the sowing of the seed on rocky ground, and then in thin ground, and then on good soil. And the difference that makes in how a person can come to faith, and whether it flourishes or whether it's kind of choked in amongst the weeds and so doesn't survive, or whether just because it's open to all the elements, because the soil is non-existent, that it just dies a death straight away. And we can understand that in terms of an individual's life, and then within the culture or community in which that person grows up. Well, it's the same here, that Isaiah is using this relationship to the flourishings of plants in wholesome soil. But the plants flourish not because of anything they do, not because the community in which that seed, that plant is growing, but because of God. It's God himself who makes the plants to grow. And this gets us away from any sense of, because we put these things in place, say like a government or whatever, then we did a really good job and we deserve some kudos for that. Everything comes from God. Isaiah reminds us here. And it's kind of reminds us, it takes a step back into the Garden of Eden, where all was chaos, and now we have this garden in which humans can communicate and just sort of converse with God in the garden as they walk around. The second part of this is where there's the robe of righteousness, and with a supporting illustration of a bridegroom's garland and a bride's jewels. And again, this is to do with righteousness, not something that springs up from within the individual or is even encouraged and developed within a community, but as something that comes as a gift from God. And it's a divine gift. And what Isaiah is doing is telling us that God hasn't stopped being God. It's not just become a kind of passive observer over the human race, or he's not gone off to do something more interesting. I'm going, well, these humans, they're pretty. I'm going to get another planet and get another race, create another race who are just more interested and want to have a relationship with me. No, he's not done that at all. And so in terms of what Isaiah is talking about, he's saying that Jerusalem is going to be the kind of epicenter of where this activity of flourishing and righteousness takes place within the country of Israel, who are his chosen people. And if you just think about that, it's gone from creation to a people to a city. It will go to an individual. Psalm for today is a portion of Psalm 147. It's verses 13 through 21. And it starts off with how good it is to sing praises to our God. Now, I don't know about you, but one of the issues that non-believers have voiced to me, some of them my friends, some of them just they see a dog collar and feel like they can just shout at me, is that they think that God needs his ego grooming, and that we have to. This is what they think worship is. This is what they think praising God's all about. It's like having a dog. Good dog, good dog. Now sit. Oh, good dog. Here's a reward. So it's the same thing for. You wouldn't do that with a cat, really, would you? No. So they think it's the same thing with God. Hey, God, you're really good. And we're just telling you this because. Well, that is the exact opposite of what this psalm is talking about. And it kind of raises questions that we should be asking ourselves if we haven't already done so. And why do we praise God? Why do we worship God? What is it about? Now, of course, it's basically the same thing, because worship is about giving worth to something or someone. And just by saying that, it suddenly comes to my mind that I could do a sermon about why everything in life has to focus on God. Because as soon as we turn the focus away from God, it turns into idolatry. In other words, it turns to worship of self. And that, in my mind, leads to going through the Ten Commandments and showing you that even though the first few are directed at God, and then the last ones are directed at community, how all of them, in the end, refer in some way to idolatry, kind of self-worship, or the worship of something other than God. So this is a really interesting. Please do that sermon. I will, but not now. Or it could be something that we could do as a study, because it's worth it. Because obviously you'd have to go through every commandment and kind of do some of the background, and then work out what part we are supposed to play and how we could distort it and turn it around to make it about ourselves. So yeah, that probably would be better to do as a mini study of some sort, maybe 2-3 weeks or 30. But yeah, I mean, that's an idea. Then we move to the second lesson, which is Galatians. And listen to this. Galatians chapter 3, verses 23 through 25, and chapter 4, verses 4 through 7. Now, I'm generally very wary of scriptures that have gaps in them, that that have been made by our lectioners to go from one place to another. First thing my suspicious mind asks is, what is missing and why? But hey, it's Christmas. I have a Christmassy t-shirt on. So it's probable that what's been done is to make an introduction and then skip to something more seasonal. And yes, what could be more seasonal than family? So within this Galatians reading, we have Paul going blah, 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 as a kind of introduction, then family. This is, this season, the season of Christmas and Christmastide, is one in which the church family remembers why it exists. Or to put it another way, it's the season when churches remember that they themselves have become surrogate families for many. I think I would say that I'm a really good example of that. During this season, Advent has been this one of anticipation. And then we get to the bit where traditionalist fuddy-duddies like me will then allow the well-familiar songs of Christmas to be sung, along with all the well-known biblical passages. Because Advent is now over, let's get those carols going. And it's a short season, which is kind of pity because there's so many beautiful and not very well-worn carols that could be sung. And we really need to relearn some of them. But the one thing is that for the past 4 weeks, we've also been listening to a lot of Advent hymns, which a lot of other churches, because they want to hit Christmas as soon as possible, will have missed. So I think we get the best of both worlds. But in amongst all of this it's a time to remember. Now, Father Lewis, if he's still on, does a really good job of explaining just how important this remembering is, because it isn't just about recalling or recollecting or just thinking about something that happened in the past. It's about making an event in the past come to our present. Again, Father Lewis could put it way better than me, which means he should be preaching on Sunday. Are you on, Father Lewis? I think he's run off. Yep, I can hear his cat screaming from here. Anyhow, yes, so we're not just here to recollect, we're not here just to recall. But when we do things like this, and this is what the Eucharist is about as well, when we call it a memorial, what we tend to think of as memorials is statues and signs and even buildings that have been erected as a kind of aid memoir possibly about somebody. But when we do the Eucharist, we invite what happened at the Last Supper to be with us, and we partake in it in a real mystical way, or should I say mysterious way. And it also allows, when we do that, it allows us to renew our commitments of membership in the body of Christ, or if you want to be posh, within the ecclesial family of God. And when we do this, when we do it within our own lives, if you think about the best that church has given us throughout the years, throughout the decades, and what the church should be in terms of its witness, both to things of faith and social justice and things like that. The aspirational side of what church can be really can lift us up and remind us that, well, we're not in this alone. 2, family is, in this case, thicker than blood, because we inherit this family as the body of Christ. So within this very short reading for Galatians, he packs a great deal in. Paul packs an absolute vast amount into a short space, which is all for the good for the first Sunday of Christmas. So, anything else I want to talk about? Nope. Oh, maybe, yes. Yeah, in the same way that Isaiah talks about everything coming from God, and then the Psalm kind of reminding us that things that we worship God uh, in glory because He's worthy of it. Um, Paul in Galatians reminds us about this theme of fullness, the fullness of time, and that to everything there is a season, and this is the season in which God sends His only Son. And then we move to John, the Gospel of John. In fact, it's the first chapter of John, verses 1 through 18. In the beginning. Now, this will be the second time I'll have read this, and so probably the second time I will have preached on it. Um, I've always found it really weird that when I've back in the past, when I've been to like revival meetings and stuff like that, missionary meetings, sounds better than revival meeting, that when people wanted to know more about Christianity, then it was kind of odd because they would hand people a small version of the Gospel of John, and it seems to be that this has been quite a popular thing to do for ever, really. That you want to know about Christianity, you're interested in Jesus. Here's the Gospel of John. And I've never considered John to be a kind of theology for the masses. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then it continues within that vein for quite a while. This is deep theology. And it's a theology that requires a great foundation already to have been laid to begin to make sense of this in beginning language as it references the pre-creation story and the non-begotten, the begottenness but eternalness of the Son, and it's fraught with mystery. Um, so how would you handle that? And how would a new Christian or somebody who is trying to learn, possibly on their own, because one of the problems, at least it used to be with old-fashioned missions, is that you get a lot of people who would like to make a commitment to become a Christian. You give them a couple of tracts, and you say bye-bye, and there's no follow-up. There's no, you don't send them to a church. There's nothing. I maybe missions do a better job at that now. But you hand them this book, which begins with these really, in the beginning was the Word, and the what? What's all that about? So how do you deal with that? Well, from my perspective, which has got a few years under the belt of theology and Bible study and the study of the original languages, I would want to talk about how John, of all the Gospelers, uses light and dark as his main metaphor. Um, and there are worries within that because as you may have remembered if you took part in the Advent group, um, one of the things that was problematic with early Christianity was this idea that there was kind of dualist gods going on. There was the one of the spirit, where everything's light and everything, and there's one of the physicality, one of the flesh, where it's all dark and evil and bad. And you wouldn't want to go down there, especially reading John. But there is this light and dark, and the light is good and the dark is bad. Um, and maybe you'd want to discuss what this means. If everything's in the light, for instance, if everything is open, if everything is searchable, everything is above board, then everyone has access to that information, has access to that person, has access to whatever's going on there, and the truth can live and flourish in those circumstances. But when people start meeting in shady backroom deals and planning to do this, that, and the other, and even in churches, this has happened where, a pastor, I know of one pastor who, if I could get anywhere near to be like him, it would be a blessing to me and to everybody else. He is a really, really, really faithful and good guy. But there was something going on, and because he is a man of integrity, he went to hit it head on. And brought it. He did it the biblical way. He went to see the person that was involved and didn't get anywhere. Took the elders. It wasn't an Episcopal church, and then it just went all backwards from that, because it wasn't just an individual thing. This person has some very powerful people involved in some nefarious dealings that were going on in the church, and they rose and they just made it impossible for him, to the point that he resigned. And he's still very broken about that experience, because within the world of Christianity, within the world of God, the light wins. The light always wins, because it's to do with truth and integrity and trust and accountability and all these other things. But within the world in which we can live, it can often backfire against you, which would lead to a really dark and dismal sermon. So I won't be preaching about that. But we have to be aware of the forces that surround us. And one of the things that we find in the other Gospels is that there are these forces that are, from the get-go, from Jesus' birth, begin to form and amass power. And see that, this person, this baby, if he is who people say he is, a king, that is a challenge to my own power. And as he grows up, who does he think he is? He comes from a tiny village. He's a nothing. And he becomes more and more popular. And he shows up those people in power and authority, the ones who are so used to having their own way, so used to being listened to, so used to being obeyed. And this one doesn't. He does his own thing. He interprets in a way all the things that the others have interpreted in their own particular way to their own advantage, and brings the light to them. And it's going to cost him. And you know who I'm talking about here. But you can also think of perhaps people from your experience who, what's the saying about doing the right thing? Or is it, never a good deed goes unpunished, or something like that. And we know of examples of this. But it shouldn't stop you from doing the right thing. And sometimes it does. Some people just give up. And some people just become jaded. Some people fall away from church. Some people go to church because they think it's the only place where they will find power and an ability to boss other people around. And that needs to be remembered too. John's for Christmas, first Sunday after Christmas. It's really, really strange to my mind, lection. It's a really strange reading to have. Yes, we know the Word made flesh and dwelt amongst us, but we've already said that. I'll be saying it at Christmas Day, I think. And we've got all this family stuff, family growth, praise and worship, and then this theme of the light and the dark and the fight that's going on around it. I'm going to have to think about that. Well, I hope my ramblings have made some kind of sense. I can say that this coffee I've got today has been very good, and it was brought by one of those pod things which I opened and used, put in my other machine. And it was some kind of rainforest coffee. Never had it before. Anyway, please keep me in your prayers, and Father Lewis and Josh and everybody else who thus far has been involved in the preparations of the church. It's been a massive endeavor with a lot of people involved, and I'm so happy that so many people have been able to take part in getting things together. It'll be the same on Thursday night, and I do hope you will join us for the worship. I think it's going to be splendid and a real event. And in some ways, I wish I could see it from the other side of the camera, because I'll be too busy fretting and worrying that and hoping that everything's going right while it's happening. So please do keep us all in your prayers. Do keep safe. And there is no Thursday afternoon tea. It won't be long before we'll be setting off for church to make sure that we're all the best we can be for the evening service. So take care of yourselves, and maybe I'll see you Christmas Day in the drive-through communion. God bless.